Listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. This is Mark. Hope you're having a great day. If you would please just bear with me for 1 second. We're going to get started in just one moment. I'm actually just cleaning up a couple of things to make sure that this is going to be an awesome training. So, for everyone that is here, if you could just please go ahead and put something in the chat box right now to let me know that you can hear me okay. So if you can hear me, go ahead and just throw something in the chat box. Awesome. Hello, everyone. Good. So this training is something that I think is huge, that is definitely a missing link in everyone's business. Most of the people that I talk to have maybe bits and pieces of some of the things that I'm going to cover today. A lot of times they may have heard misinformation from other people who are completely clueless about how all this stuff works. So they may have something that they think is going to be the gospel, and then they find out that it's actually going to cause them more problems than it will actually end up helping them. So we're going to be talking about effective cold email strategies today. Most importantly, what I'm going to be talking about is it's not just going to be about what kind of messages to send. We will get into that, but this is going to be the technical side of things that a lot of people is missing. And before you just tune out saying, "Oh, technical, I don't need to know this." No, you do need to know this, and you need to pay close attention to what we're going to be covering today, because if you get any of this wrong, not only will it affect the emails that you're sending now, but it'll affect any of the emails that you're sending out in the future. So it's very important that you pay close attention to everything that I have lined up for you today. Also, I want to make sure, did you download the handout that we sent? You should be able to get that here. It's in the handouts. If you didn't download it, it's right here under handouts. I've not actually used this before inside of GoToWebinar, but if you look at the handouts, you'll see it there. If not, you should have downloaded it before you've shown up here. Okay? Awesome. Everybody's saying they did. That's great. So we're going to cover all of these different things that you see here, and I'm not honestly sure if I'll be able to know when I've covered something on that handout, so you want to pay close attention as well in entering these things in, okay? So everything will turn out perfectly for you at the end. But the reason why I put this handout together is because this is that important. I need to make sure that you're paying attention, because if you get this right, it's going to make your business grow like wildfire. If you get it wrong, then you're going to continue to struggle with the same things that you're struggling with now, okay? So that starts me with my first question, okay? Is this, and you go ahead and put something in the chat box if this is you, but is this how your last email campaign went? Okay, you found a list, or you purchased a large general list of business owners that you wanted to email, okay? A lot of times this starts with, somebody maybe just harvesting a lot of data off the internet, or, going to a provider that sells the data. You end up blasting out what you thought was a very compelling message that's just blowing your product up about how amazing your product is, about how your service is, and how you have the greatest customer service. You've got the perfect message. But then your open rate never even went above 5%. And maybe only 7 to 10% of those who actually opened the email clicked through to your website and took a look at your offer. Or maybe you did get some responses to the message, but the responses that you were getting were things like, take me off your list. They didn't have any use for your product. They weren't interested. Those types of things. Nobody saying, how do I sign up? And after all was said and done, you ended up with no sales or not even a promising lead that could turn into a sale. Does any of that sound familiar? I see a lot of people saying, yes, that is true. That is the kind of things that I've been seeing. Yes, okay. So I'm going to tell you that most cold email campaigns fail for two reasons. Okay? Make sure that you're paying close attention, because starting right now, I'm going to help you with the filling in of the blanks. Okay? So pay close attention to the first one here is you didn't target the right audience. You didn't target the right audience at all. And number two, or actually, just to give you a little bit of detail on this, the average consumer is experiencing or is being exposed to over 5,000 advertisements every single day. Most of those aren't even looked at. And you see here 153 are actually noticed. That really doesn't mean much of anything. They just kind of, notice them like you notice a billboard on the way somewhere. You didn't maybe, like it didn't sink in. You just kind of glanced over at it. And only about 10 to 12 of those actually make an impression on you. But still, that doesn't mean anything, okay? So if you think about that, it's very easy for people to see something that's not relevant to them and just ignore it altogether. So if you're not targeting the correct audience, if you're not looking at the person that's going to have this need, this bleeding neck for whatever it is that you're selling in the first place, or whatever it is that you're offering, or whatever you're trying to help these people with, then it's going to be very simple for them to just completely ignore you altogether. Okay, so that's the first one. The second one is your message never even hit the inbox in the first place. That is a big one, okay? Your message never hit the inbox in the first place. Look, over 100 billion emails are sent and received every single day, and less than 70% of those will even see the inbox. That's actually 30%, sorry, right? 70% of those won't see the inbox. I knew those numbers were flipped. 30% of those emails that are sent actually make it to the inbox. And that's part of the reason why these email providers have become very good at just wiping out spam altogether, okay? So today what you're going to learn is why getting your message to the right audience is vital. This is what is going to make or break you. All right, we're going to talk about the role relevance plays in your message. We're going to talk about how emailing people who are not in your target market will actually hurt you badly, okay? And we're also going to talk about why your messages aren't getting into the inbox. There's definitely some things that a lot of people aren't aware of that determine how your inboxing actually happens. How to find out if your system is suffering from a poor sender score. You may not even heard of that term before, or what to do to fix or maintain your domain's reputation. And then as a bonus, at the end, we're going to talk about some tips and strategies for successful email messages. So we will get into some of the messages and subject line type stuff towards the end as a bonus. But for the most part, I want to focus on the stuff that is really keeping you from being successful, and that is targeting the right audience and helping your message actually hit the inbox. So if that's exciting to you, so far so good, go ahead and throw something in the chat box and make sure that everybody is live and excited. Okay, good. So let's go ahead and start actually moving forward, okay? So before we begin, okay, let's talk about what is cold email. Okay? So basically, in cold email, what we're doing is we're trying to generate a relationship. We just want to get to know the person that we've identified as somebody that we can actually help. Okay? And once you get to know them, then you're going to have the opportunity for them to like you, right? And once they start to like you, and I'm not talking about like on the friend level, but once they start to like you, then they're going to start to trust you. So you're just trying to develop the know, like, and trust. You're not trying to get anybody to do anything more than that. You just want an introduction. Okay? So think of it as your way of reaching out your hand for a handshake. I always think of cold email as your way of walking up to somebody, putting out your virtual hand for a handshake. If you look at it that way, everything that you do from here on out is going to change. You will have a relationship that is being built instead of a sale that is trying to be made. And the person on the other end is going to feel so much more comfortable. Okay? Cold email is not selling or advertising your product via email. You're not trying to sell them. You're not trying to advertise your website over the email. That shouldn't be anywhere in that initial email. Okay? It's not indiscriminately sending out emails to any email address that you can find. You can scrape on Google or somebody loads into your system or whatever. That's not cold email. Okay? And another thing I want to make sure clear, 100% crystal clear, is that cold email is not illegal. If you just follow the rules, you will be okay. As a matter of fact, the CAN-SPAM Act covers all commercial messages, which the law defines as electronic message. The primary purpose of this commercial advertisement or promotion for a product or service. Okay, so you can actually go in and take a look at the CAN-SPAM Act. I've put the website up here online. If you can't write that down because it's long, just go ahead and Google it. But it's very clear what the rules are. And as long as you follow them, you're okay. Okay? So, again, I want to just state before moving forward, I'm not an attorney. I'm not giving you legal advice. You need to look into this yourself. But cold email is a very powerful thing. And if you use it to your advantage and you do things the right way, you're going to have very, very big success. Okay? So, let's start with the right audience. Okay? What is actually relevant? Okay? So you may think that everybody that you talk to is going to look at you and they want to buy everything that you have to offer because you've dealt with X type of prospect before and they're specifically, having this concern or this problem. Okay? But you got to think that prospect needs you to really understand their specific problem, right? And that what you think is relevant and what is actually relevant to them may be a very small thing, okay? So you want to focus on, this is one of the reasons why you want to focus on sticking out that virtual hand for a handshake in the initial message, so that way you have a better chance of finding out some of the other issues that may be haunting them specifically. What's keeping them up at night? If you have a general idea of what's relevant to them, then you can attack that in your initial email. But if you don't know specifics, then it's best to not try to get into them in your message. Okay? Remember that you always hear content is king, but when it comes to cold email, content is not king, meaning having lots of content in a message can actually hurt you, okay? A lot of people are getting all these different ads hit with them on a daily basis that are not specific to their interests. So when they get an email that is also headed off into that direction, it makes it just as bad. And actually not just as bad, it makes it worse because that was something that was sent to them that was supposed to be personal to them. Okay? So you want to focus on doing everything that you possibly can on being relevant. Right? Customers are going to respond best to the things that are something that they specifically need and have a want for. Okay? And as a matter of fact, if they do see something that is not relevant to them, they're just going to unsubscribe or worse yet, ignore you. Okay? The top reasons that a U.S. Somebody who's receiving an email in the U.S. from a business or a nonprofit email subscription is because they're just getting too many emails, and the emails that they're receiving are not relevant to maybe what they originally signed up for in the first place. And the same thing goes with cold email. If you're targeting people that you don't have a subscription for and it's not relevant, then they're not going to unsubscribe. They'll just never look at you in the first place. Okay? So the takeaway that I want you to have here on this specific thing, which we're driving home here, is that you got to always be relevant. You got to hit the target every single time. Consumers are going to respond to the best relevant products, services, and offers, and the more familiar you become with them, with your target, the better that they're going to understand or that you'll understand what's relevant to them. Okay? And if you don't have a clear understanding of who your target is, then you're going to have to go and do some homework on that. Okay? Takeaway number 2, don't take this list that you've gotten for granted. We spoke about this earlier, but cold email is not going to be something that you indiscriminately mail every single person that you have an address for. Okay? Successful cold emailing is going to rely heavily on your ability to get a quality list of prospects that are, in fact, relevant to what you have to offer. We have another training that we're going to do on this specifically, where we're going to go and teach you how to harvest or find the right quality prospects. But this is so important that when you email these people that aren't a good fit for your business, this will hurt you. Okay? And we're going to cover that. So how do you make it into the inbox? Okay? So we talked about avoiding the irrelevant prospects. Why is it so important to avoid those irrelevant prospects? Well, because if they see the subject line or if they see something coming from you that's not relevant to them, they're not going to open it. And if they don't open that email, that's partially going to hurt you. You may have heard of some things which we're going to cover here now about how bounces affect you and how spam reports affect you. But if you send an email that never gets open in the first place, that also affects the reputation of your email server, which means if your sender score goes down, then you got to work harder to bring it back up. Okay? So just remember, keep this in your mind, that every single email that you send every single day is going to impact your domain's reputation. It's going to impact your IP address that your domain is sending from. So the more you damage it, the lower your score goes down, the more difficult it is going to be to improve it. I've seen some cases where people just had to go and get a new IP address and start from scratch and just warm up a new IP address rather than trying to improve what they've already destroyed. Okay? So what is a sender reputation? So every single domain has what's called a sender reputation score or a sender score. Okay? This is like the first thing that a email server is looking at when they decide if they're going to actually deliver that message. Okay? I I don't know how familiar you are with how email works, but when the email is sent from your computer, there's a specific kind of connection that's done through SMTP. And when you hit send, it goes through the internet, it gets to that server on the other side, okay? And when that connection is being requested, they have the opportunity to decide whether or not they want to make that handshake. And if they look at your hand and see that it has a bad reputation because of the score that's associated with it, then that handshake doesn't complete. Okay? So the sender reputation of your email is really what's going to count. Okay? So there's three common ways that you're sending out that you're likely sending out email right now. Okay, I'm going to cover like the three most common ways. There may be others, but the first one would be through your domain server, okay, or your web domain server. That would be like GoDaddy, Bluehost, Network Solutions, whoever it is that you're using to host your website. Okay, when you send out through your web host, you're sending out through that way. Okay. The second one is through a third-party email server like Google Business Apps. You can connect your business to Google Business Apps, and then you have the capability of actually, using Google's quality scores to make sure that your emails go through, which is not a bad option. Okay. The third way is through an API email service like SendGrid or Mandrill or Mailgun or something like that. These are companies that's dedicated to keeping their service whitelisted or their IPs whitelisted so that way your emails are getting through. Okay? So before I actually move on about what the difference is, I want to make sure, is this information helping? Are you starting to get a picture in your mind of how cold email is working? And okay, good, awesome, a lot of good feedback. Good. I just want to make sure that I'm not putting you to sleep, because I know this sometimes is one of those things that you get. It's like, oh, boring. This isn't talking about the fun stuff, which is like how to go out and make money. We're talking about how to get your emails delivered. Which, by the way, if you don't get done, means no money, right? Okay, so what's the difference between the three? So we're going to start with the first example, which is your domain server. All right. So let's say you bought your domain through GoDaddy and you're using them to host your website and your email. Okay. So the way that would look is something like this. You have, your website on some server, and you could see that that server has a specific IP address associated with it. Okay. And along with that, there's other websites that aren't associated with your specific website that are on that same IP that are sharing your IP. Okay? Now think about that for a second. We just talked about sender score, right? So if everyone's sharing the same IP address and the email connection that's trying to be made looks at the sender score for that IP address, what happens if website 3 and website 4, whoever is on that site with you or server with you, is doing some things that are not what that email server that is you're trying to connect to likes? If their sender score goes down, does that affect your sender score? Yes, it does. Absolutely. So if you're using shared domains, which is kind of what we're talking about here with a shared host like GoDaddy or any of those situations where you don't have a dedicated server, you just have a shared plan. What other people are doing on that domain or on that server is also going to cause problems for you. Okay, so if they're sending out bulk email with lots of bounces, then that sender score gets tanked. And when you try to send out an email, your deliverability is going to suffer because of it. And because GoDaddy or these other companies aren't email providers first, they're web hosts first, they're not really focused on keeping that domain from having problems. Now that doesn't mean that they just ignore it, right? Because they do watch when that's happening, and they will eventually get to it and stop it. But that's not before the damage has already been done. Example number 2 is the third-party email server. Okay, maybe your web host is GoDaddy or whatever, and you're hosting your domain through them, but then inside your DNS settings, you've set up Google to be your main email provider, and you're logging in through Google to send out your email. Okay, so now you're sending out through Google, and your sender score not only isn't damaged because of what other people are doing, but Google is like one of the most trusted, server email providers out there. So they're going to do everything to make sure that those emails do get delivered. And we're going to get into sender score a little bit more of like what is a good sender score, but like Google's sender scores usually are in the 98, 99 level, right? Whereas I've seen sender scores get down under 50%. And the lower it is, under 50, your email is not getting into the inbox. It's actually not even it's less than that. I think it's like 70. We'll get into it here in just a second. The third example is through a dedicated API. Okay. Oh, and something I didn't cover in example 1 and example 2, which is your Google servers and stuff, is that they usually have hourly limits or daily limits that's set of how much emails that you can send out per hour and how much emails you can send out per day. So you want to make sure that you keep that in mind. Okay. So example number 3 is your dedicated systems that are out there. They have an API or you're sending through their SMTP relay. All right. It works just like GoDaddy. You have your own domain somewhere else, but then you inside your DNS settings for your host, you are sending your email through someone like Mailgun or SendGrid or whomever. Okay. So you have their servers, and basically, again, they're doing everything on their side to make sure that mail server is, or that IP address is going to be whitelisted and it's going to have a good score. That doesn't mean that you can't ruin it, but it's a lot better because they're monitoring, especially if you're on a shared IP with multiple people, they're monitoring that heavily to see what other people are doing. And if they're making mistakes that can cost your emails from making it into the inbox, then they're going to take quick action to move you either to a different IP for lower class senders, or they're going to suspend your service so you can't be sending out the email that you're sending that's causing problems. Okay, and then other things that they do is they'll actually they'll connect your domain. You'll be able to connect to their system and actually verify your ownership of those domains by adding an SPF record or DKIM settings or DKIM settings to your actual system, to their system. So when you're sending out these emails, remember that handshake that I was telling you about. When that handshake is happening, they'll be able to, the other server will be able to verify that you are, in fact, legitimate, right? It's just an extra layer of verification. The more of these verifications and layers that you have, the higher your inboxing rate is going to be, okay? So hopefully that actually helps you explain that. Somebody says, now you're killing us with technical, and I know that it seems over technical, but just so you know, SPF and DKIM settings are very simple. You don't even have to know how to do them. You just need to know, based off of what I just told you, that these SPF records, these DKIM settings need to be on your, they need to be in your DNS settings. And if you don't know how to do that, you can just call your web host and say, can you please add these? And usually the third party service that you're using, like SendGrid or Mailgun or whomever, is going to provide those settings to you, and then you can just go to your host and add them. You just tell your host, here, add these for you. So if you're not the most technical person, that's okay. You just need to know about this. And you need to know that it's important that these are there. And if you can't add them, somebody will add them for you. But make sure that that's done, because if you don't, then you don't verify that you actually have the permission to be sending from that domain, which drops your delivery, your deliverability. Okay. Does that answer your question there, or does that help you guys understand? And if this is something that took me a while to really comprehend when I first got started doing it, but I knew, just kind of like I told you, the basics was, if I didn't have these, it's a bad thing. If I have them, it's a good thing. And getting them added, even though I'm not the best with, the technical side of things, if I ask my host, they'll do it. It's easy. Okay, good. A lot of people are good. Now, again, if you boot or if you abuse this service, be prepared to be booted. Okay? So, sender reputation scoring. Okay, what is it? How does it work? Well, think of it like a credit score. A new domain, just like when you first, get out the house, when you're a kid, you grow up, you get out on your own. Typically, you don't have a credit score. Okay, so you get a new domain or a new IP address, it doesn't have a sender score. It doesn't start with a perfect sender score. You have to, what we call, warm up that IP. Okay, and I'll talk about how that works here in a second. But look at these delivery. How the score actually affects your delivery. So if you have less than 70 as a sender score, then 3% of your emails are going to make it to the inbox. That's horrible. You would have to send out hundreds of thousands of emails at that point to even get any kind of traction. If your sender score is between 71 and 80, then you're going to get a 58% inbox rate. 81 and 90, you're looking at a set 81 to 90%. 87% for 91 to 94, 95 to 98 gets you 90%, and then 98% if you're a 99 to 100. Now, I specifically focus on making sure my inbox stays on that higher level. And all the things that I'm teaching you today is going to help you make sure that you do this. Okay? You're going to stay in this level, in this higher ranking, if you do all the things that I'm telling you today. Okay? There's no fixing. It's not an instant fix. You gotta work on it. Okay? So any of those email habits that you have with that domain are going to either improve it or it's going to damage it. Another thing that you want to keep in mind is any of the emails that you're sending. If you send 100 emails, the percentage of those emails that are actually opened by your recipient is going to affect your score. Why is that? And guys, we're going to talk about how to find your score in just a second. Okay, so just bear with me. But why is that? Why is it that's happening? Well, because that means it's not even relevant to the person that you're emailing. So it's likely spam, right? So if you're focusing on having good quality emails, the person that you're emailing is actually relevant to what you're offering, and the subject line is relevant to the person that you're emailing it to, then they're likely going to open it, which means that your sender score is going to stay high, which means your inbox rate is going to be good, which means the next email you send, as long as it's relevant, is going to keep. You see what I'm saying? That's how it works. So you got to focus on that. Okay. And then getting that message that you send marked as spam, that also will cause your sender score to drop, which is kind of the obvious, right? Having bounces emails, having your emails bouncing, having low percentage of open rates, having spam, Those are all things, right? So here's some things to think about. Okay, who here has grabbed a list of 10,000 people and blasted out an email? Everybody should be saying yes. A lot of people, right? Or who's done more than 1,000? A lot of people. Okay. Look, that right there, that seriously impacted your sender score. They didn't know who you were. Okay? So if you send out a large volume of email at one time without without it, being something that you've taken an opportunity to kind of work your way up to, that will impact your sender score, right? You want to start low and then work your way up. So, for example, maybe send out 50 or 100 for the first few days, and then scale it up to 500, and then scale it up and scale it up and scale it up. Now, the stuff that I'm teaching you, you will never have to go that high, but that's how you're going to make sure that your sender score stays high, so your emails are actually getting into the inbox. Okay. Another thing is sending out an email, a single email, to more than 5 recipients. If you're adding 5 recipients into the to field, or copying a whole bunch of people in a list. You guys remember back, I don't know, several years ago, I don't really get them anymore, and I think probably because they're all hitting the spam box. You remember when somebody would reply to all, or somebody would forward some, stupid email that really you didn't want to be on. It was like, send this email to a bunch of people if you care about this specific topic, right? Those are spam. Is spam, I guess you can call it friendly spam because it's coming from somebody that you usually know somehow, but they're spamming everybody, and they would reply to all, or they would send a message to every one of the people in their address book. That causes your email sender score to drop, okay? And you want to completely avoid, like the plague, high bounce rate. What is a bounce rate? That means that an email that you sent to doesn't exist. There's different types of bounces, which we're going to cover, but bounce rates are huge. If you're not paying attention to a bounce rate, when you get an email back, if you sent an email and it says, hey, this email, you get that error, this email does not exist, that's a bounce. And if you send out a lot that bounce, that really destroys your reputation. Spam complaints that we talked about, sending to a spam trap. A lot of people didn't even realize this, but there are emails that are placed out on the internet that are actually traps, honeypots. They're traps. They're meant to catch somebody that's spamming. They're waiting for people. It's harvested an email to hit them, because as soon as you hit that, there was no other reason for you to have had that email except by gathering it in the wrong way. And if you send to that, that will tank you almost instantly, because they're going to report you. Okay, so you're probably like, "Wow, this is scary. Like, I'm never going to scrape a list off the internet again." All right, we'll get into ways to fix this, guys. So don't get too paranoid, because again, I'm teaching you how to do it the right way. But right now, before we get into it, I'm kind of giving you the whole rundown on what to look out for. Okay, so there's 2 different types of bounces. You have soft bounces. That usually doesn't impact you too much, because usually what the problem is that their inbox is full. Now, if it keeps soft bouncing, again and again and again, every time you send out, then it becomes a problem, and it's like you're not paying attention. So if you get a soft bounce and you've noticed a few times that it's happened, you want to remove that off of your list, because now you're just emailing somebody who's likely let that account just die. Nobody has a full inbox forever. If they hit that full inbox, usually a person who's checking that inbox is going to clear it. So a soft bounce can still affect you, but it's not as quickly as a hard bounce. The hard bounce means that email just does not exist. So how do you avoid bounced emails? Okay? You always, 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 always 100% of the time need to verify any list that you email before you actually put it into any kind of an email system. We use a system here called bulkemailchecker.com. It's very inexpensive. I'm not an affiliate for them, but they have a very inexpensive system. You can load thousands of emails in, and it's going to try to verify them. And they have a series of checks to make sure that you're sending to an email that is actually not going to harm your reputation, that it's not going to have the spam traps, it's not going to have a bounce, it's not going to be a bad inbox. So you can actually go there, load your list, and then it spits out your list with 3 different ratings. You get an okay or a good, you get a bad, or you get unknown. I don't send to anybody that is unknown or bad. There's no reason to, because even 10, 15 of those could affect my score. I'm not going to even jeopardize it. It makes no sense. Okay. So now the next thing is how to avoid spam complaints. Spam complaints is when your email is flagged as spam by the person who's received your email. So if you are one of those types of people that is maybe subscribed to somebody and they send you too many emails, is that spam? Some people are saying yes, some people are saying no. That's not spam. Okay? So if you're on somebody's list and they're sending you too many emails and you're frustrated, don't hit spam. That's not how you unsubscribe. You scroll down and look for an unsubscribe link. Now, if they are not giving you an unsubscribe method or any kind of instruction on how to get off their list, is that spam? Yes, it is. Even if you did subscribe, they're now breaking the spam law. So then you can mark spam because they didn't give you any other choice. Okay? So a way to avoid yourself from being put into that situation when you're not mailing to people who you actually have a relationship with, okay, they're just a relevant prospect. Break up your list into very small campaigns, less than 50 if you can. You can see here we're saying 100, no more than 500 at once. If you're mailing to a very targeted audience, then you're going to have a higher likelihood of getting a response, right? So there's no need in blasting out thousands. Keep it small. Okay? And the other reason why you won't be getting the spam complaints is because they're relevant. You're going to get maybe one every now and then, which is not going to throw any red flags. Okay? Next is personalize as much of the message as you possibly can. And that means, a lot of email providers, us included, have the ability for you to add tokens into the system, into your email. It's called a mail merge token, it's a placeholder, which will add personalized information to that specific email that's being sent. So if you have a short message, but most of it is being personalized with their name and personalized in the subject line and personalized with different pieces of information that you have on that contact inside the message, now the message is it's like a percentage of that email is unique. So that's also going to help. And because they're seeing this email that's personalized to them, they're not going to likely mark it as spam. Hopefully that makes sense. Another thing that I see a lot of people doing, which is a very bad move, is mailing to any type of generic inboxes. We're talking info at, marketing at, sales at, support at, contact at, anything that is a word. It's not a name. Questions at, anything like that. If you're sending to those types of inboxes, the person that's monitoring that inbox is more likely to mark your email as spam. Because even if it is relevant to the person who you're trying to send it to, that person specifically doesn't care and will likely mark it as spam. So don't even send to those generic inboxes. Somebody just says, oh boy, I was about to send some to info at. Yes, don't do it. Okay? So how do you avoid the spam traps? Okay, those spam traps, like I said, those are fake email addresses, and it's hard sometimes to know. Getting into one of them, it may happen by mistake, and even some of the time when you're scrubbing a list through like an email checker or something, it's not 100% guaranteed. They don't guarantee that you're not going to hit a spam trap. Okay, there are systems, there are ways to detect it, and they and it's hard sometimes because when you look at the actual email itself, it may look like a real person, like maybe the way it's written or the email itself. One of the ways to actually do it is to focus 100% on gathering prospects that are related to what it is that you're offering. So if you're going out online and gathering prospects, which we do a lot of here, make sure that you're looking for people that are really relevant to what you are offering and that they look more real. Okay. Another way of doing that is to search those emails through like a service called it just escaped me. I'll come back to this later, but there's a way online where you can actually plug in an email address, and then it'll pull back any of their social accounts. If somebody knows what I'm talking about, the name just escaped me of who they are. They have a free system that you can do this through. That you just plug in the email, and actually there's a plug-in. Thank you. Someone just said it. Rapportive. Rapportive. Okay, Rapportive. And if you use Rapportive, you can put it's something that plugs right into your browser, and you can just plug their email in. And if you see their picture come up and you see other things about them like their Skype and all that stuff, then you know that it's a quality prospect. Now you're probably thinking, well, that stuff takes a lot of time. Well, yeah. But if you spend a little more time in the beginning, you're not going to have to do this quite as much. You're building a database. Again, I don't want to get too much into that right now because I have a whole other training on that, and I don't want to, take you off into the weeds here. But get the point is, spend some time. Larry, that was Rapportive, Rapportive.com. And you want to look for the plugin for Chrome. It's really good. Okay, so how do I find the status of my domain? A lot of people ask that. Senderbase.org is one that'll give you your score. And then we also use MX Toolbox to check if your domain has been blacklisted. If your domain's been blacklisted, it's very easy to fix. They'll list all of the people who you have been blacklisted for, and then you just need to go in and you contact those different blacklists, and they'll usually instantly remove you from the blacklist if you're on it. You can get off really easy. It's not like one of those things where it's like your credit score, once it's dinged, it's completely destroyed. Like blacklists, so they understand sometimes people just have it out for you and they mark everybody as spam. But you just go to these two different domains, check your sender score, check your see if you're blacklisted, and if you are, you can very easily fix that. Okay. Belinda, the name of that scrubbing service is bulkemailchecker.com. That's BULK emailchecker.com. There's others out there, but that's just one that we've used and we've had a lot of success with. Anybody that uses our service, our system, we are very adamant that they take their time and getting those lists and cleaning them and not going out and getting thousands of emails. It's not about who can get the most emails. It's about who can get the best response. The higher the response, the better. Okay? Okay, so let's go into the bonus material here. I'm always about giving away bonus content. And this bonus material, what I want to cover is some different tips and strategies on email. So before we cover that, I just want to ask, is everybody loving this training? Is this helping you out? If you learned something new, put a yes indeed into the chat box. If you learned something new today, and this is something that you feel is going to help you improve your business, great. I love seeing that. The inbox is full of yes indeeds. That's great. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and move on to the next portion. Brad, that is actually something it'll do. Now, not your regular Gmail account. Brad asked a question I want to cover before we move on. And we'll take more questions toward the end, guys, but I just want to cover this before we move on. He asked, how do we check the score of our Gmail account? There's no way to actually check the score of your personal Gmail account, but just understand your Gmail account isn't going to have a terrible score. Gmail will just knock you off, right? They have that or whoever, Hotmail or whomever, they'll just suspend your account. Okay, so you're talking about a personal email. Now, if you're using Google Apps for business, you're going to also have that same level of experience. Their job is to make sure that your emails get through. So you can still check your domain specific, through that sender score that we were just talking about. If you're using like Google Apps for Business or something like that, and it'll return a score, but you'll notice that those scores usually stay very high. I've never had my Google Apps for Business drop below the 98%. Okay. So let's talk about the golden rule for subject lines. Okay. Number one, deliver what you promise. Don't be tricky. Don't be tricky about what you're promising here. You jump in, to doing that kind of thing, and then you may get people out of spite to mark you as spam just because they're angry. So don't be tricky. If you say quick question in your subject line, to make sure that your email is quick and to the point, and then you're asking a question. Don't go on to write a novel selling your product or service, right? Number two, keep it honest. Keep it straightforward. Don't try to be tricky, again, like we said, and don't try to be salesy at all. Those never work. People can read right through that. I love quick question. Matter of fact, why we use this in this training. I use quick question about, and then I put in their company name. Or if you have their name, I guess you could use that. But if you're targeting companies, quick question about company seems to work really well. Again, you're customizing each of those subject lines, so it's not like it's going to get picked up that you're sending out the same subject line, and it is relevant to every single person because you're asking a question about their company. And if they see that, the first thing they're thinking is, oh, they might have a question about what? Purchasing a product or service or whatever from them, because businesses are in business to make money. So that's one of my highest opening email subject lines right there. I just gave you as a gift. My email subject line, or that subject line, gets me opens as much as 60% or more, depending on the list that we're emailing to. Okay. Incremental commitments. Okay. Again, we're not trying inside of that email to get somebody to say, here's my credit card. Instead, we're just trying to get them to do, respond. Give me a response back and say, yeah, let's do something. Okay. So something that you can do is ask, instead of saying, hey, when's a good time to call me? You could say, if whatever it is that you're offering is just not getting enough responses, then you could say something like, reply back and just let me know yes or no. Just a simple yes or no. And so if you just give them something very simple that they need to do, which is hit reply and say yes or hit reply and say no, then you're going to get a better response rate. Does that make sense? Who here has ever opted in online to some kind of an offer, and the person, or maybe you didn't opt in, but the person was asking for your name, your email, your phone number, your address, and then a whole bunch of other questions that, you just didn't want to answer because you didn't know them, right? Most people are going to say they didn't opt into that, right? Exactly. Now, who's opted into a list before where they just asked for your email? Everybody, right? That's marketing. The less you ask, the more likely that they are to do it. So to increase your conversions, just always ask yourself, am I asking too much of them in this message? If I just ask them to put a simple yes or no, then that's going to help, right? So here is a subject or an email that we use when we don't have the target's name. We just know that this is an email for the company, okay? Good morning. I was looking to get in touch with the person in your HR department. What's the best way for me to contact him or her? That's it. So you can see this is a very simple question. We're just asking one question. It's 2 lines. Who has time to respond to that email and help you? Pretty much anybody, right? So if that email gets into their inbox, the chances of you getting a response are going to be high. Now, let's talk about this just a real quick second, because I want you to see what I just showed you here is a perfect example of, number 1, getting a great open rate, and number 2, getting a response. That is something that helps your sender score. So if you think in terms of how can I get somebody to open and respond to my emails so I can improve my sender score, then everything that you do is going to be better. If I was a door knocker, if that was my job, if I was a salesperson that knocked on doors, I would be doing everything I could to try to get my door open rate higher. I want more people to open the door. So I would be looking in the mirror every day and making sure that my hair was combed and I didn't look like somebody that was intimidating, and I, had the right kind of appearance and clothes was picked out properly in order to make sure that, somebody didn't get the wrong idea. If I was dressed up too much, maybe they think I'm selling Bibles or something. And if I'm dressed down too much, they may think I'm, some criminal or something. I don't know. Those are some things that would go through my head if that's what I was doing for a living. Your emails are working the same way. They're trying to decipher when they see your subject line, should they open it or not? And then when they see your email, they're deciding should they respond or not. The really skeptical people won't respond, and that's okay. But the ones that are open and honest and willing to give you help, that's who you want to talk to. They're going to respond. Hopefully that helps. But the more small commitments that you get from them up front, the better and easier it's going to be for you to get the larger commitments, like when you're asking for their credit card or for them to sign up for your service, okay? Appeal to the common ground. Humans love to be part of something, right? We're tribal in nature. So if you find a way to put them into that us category, you're going to be treated with that higher level of priority, okay? Some things that you can actually appeal to them on, and when I say, the us, like you and I have something in common type thing, okay? People are there's all different sorts of ways to show that you have something in common, education, job titles, hobbies, places, tastes and styles, whatever. The more information that you can find out about somebody that you're marketing to or sending a message to, the better. Here's another way that you can get somebody to respond is by, and this is kind of something I picked up off of a book that I read, which was to reply by link, okay? So, if somebody is just not willing to click reply, then you can add a link that they can click. So, hey, John, I've tried to get in touch with you the past couple of weeks unsuccessfully. I know you're running a business, so I know you're busy. So I made this simple one-click question survey for you for you to respond with. So you have these 3 different links. You can have question number 1, are you interested? Question 2, are you not interested? Question 3, do you want me to jump off a bridge? I don't, just giving you some examples here, but I hope you get the point. Something like this, again, is a way for you to get an incremental response, right? Something small. All they have to do is click the link. And if you're using like a link tracking system, you'll be able to know which link that they clicked. Like our system tracks the clicks that which link they clicked. So even if they didn't fill out the survey or whatever, right, then you'll be able to see which of those links they actually clicked on, so you know if they said yes or no or jump off a bridge. Okay? You can actually have the link go to a web page with a survey, like SurveyMonkey provides them, or you can take them to a form, right? There's lots of different things that you can actually do with this type of process. But again, you're taking a small commitment and leading that to that larger commitment. Okay? Brad, yes and no. Brad says if you're sending through Gmail, you can only have 2 links or it'll be marked as spam. Again, I don't send my email through Gmail because I just don't think it's professional. The only way I'm sending an email through Gmail is if I'm using business apps, and I've not had that problem. And, Nigel asked the same question, will putting links in email hurt your deliverability? No, not necessarily if you're using a whitelisted provider. Even saying something like free in the subject line, which you normally have heard is a bad thing, is actually okay if you're using a whitelisted provider because your sender score is so high. Those words do mean stuff, but it's so small. They're looking at your overall spam score. It used to be where these email servers were so dumb that they can only look at a word like free or Viagra and think this is a bad email, this is spam. Something like that would trigger it, but not so much anymore. Just like Google has gotten better at, with their algorithms, the technology has completely changed and all of them are able to determine a lot better, okay? So personalize and customize. Why is customization absolutely necessary? Well, number 1, Gmail and Yahoo picks up really easy. Hotmail, they pick up really easy on messages that are coming from the same IP that are the same message over and over and over again. What's cool about the method that we teach here in these messages is that they're short and they're sweet, but when you personalize them just a little bit, it's putting a huge twist on that email. Just a few sentences being twisted around and adding personalized content is going to make that email so unique that it will be a lot more difficult to be picked up as a bulk, email. Okay. Number 2, if that doesn't happen, then your email goes to spam. Okay. The more that you personalize and customize your message, the better that the recipient that actually gets it will receive it, meaning they are going to feel like it's specific to them. And that, in turn, will inevitably increase the response rate. And that's really what we're here for. So, some custom some ideas that you can use that, will help you achieve that killer customization that you're looking for. Where's the prospect from? If you could find out where they live. There's actually something that I recently signed up for. Again, I'm not a affiliate for this company, but it's called Email Finder. It's emailfinder.com. And Email Finder is awesome because you can plug in different things about a prospect, and it's like you can put in their name and their city, and it'll find them. You could put in their email address if you have it, and then it'll find out additional information about them. So you can use that to really personalize your list. And this is a manual thing, but again, is it worth it to spend, let's say, an hour customizing a small list of 50 people if it's going to get your response rate to so high that the person like if you send an email to 50 people that you got 25 or 30 of them responding to you? Is it worth it? I'm asking that question now. Sorry, I know it didn't sound like it was at first, but is it worth it to spend an extra hour a day customizing a list of 50 contacts if that meant that tomorrow you're going to have 25 of them contacting you back saying, yeah, I want to talk to you? Everybody's saying for sure, yes, indeed, yes, yes. Okay. So anyways, emailfinder.com is one of those services that allows you to do that. And it's, I think it's by PeopleSmart is who actually owns it, but they have a lot of data on you. You'll find out I actually signed up for it and put my own name in there, and I was like, wow, they know a lot about me. They know who my relatives are. They know where I live. They know my background, everything. But, it's pretty cheap. It's like $10 or less a month for something like that. And, that saves you a lot of time. You can plug in this information that you're finding, use it to personalize. We're actually working on a potential relationship with them in the future to where you'll have the ability to use them at an API access where you can, do a call and get additional information through an API. It's not something that's going to happen today or tomorrow, but, in the meantime, use it to do your prospecting. Okay. So yeah, finding out where the prospect's from, you can use that in your email. I see you're from Las Vegas. Number 2, how long they've been in business. That's a good one. 3, where you saw their advertisement or where you found them online. That's huge because if you're contacting a business and, you're prospecting to them and you say, I saw you on Yellow Pages and I was wondering if, that they are going to relate, oh yeah, that advertising that we're doing on Yellow Pages sure is paying off. Right? But they know now where you found them because a lot of times that's one of the first questions that I hear from a prospect. How did you find me? When they call me or I call them, how did you find me? Someone that they know, that they know. There is another application, which I'm going to throw out there, that allows you to do an introduction. And this is kind of like one of those things where you load your current list up and it'll help you find people that you're actually connected to. If you give me a second, I'll find it at the end. Just remind me, unless somebody knows what I'm talking about. It's a plugin that you can also add. It's off the top of my head. I can't think of it, but we use that as well. And if nobody puts it in here, I'll just remind me in the question box at the end and I'll look for it. The next one is maybe an article that they've posted online that you found. So you've got this person in your list that you've put together. You search them online. Maybe you see that they're a blogger or they do a lot of posts about specific things, or even they're sharing things. If you found them on LinkedIn, sometimes they're sharing other people's content, or if they're on Twitter, they've made a specific tweet. You can find them that way, or perhaps they are a YouTuber and they do a lot of videos. But if you put something that they've actually posted, again, that's going to get them to respond. And I know you're thinking all this takes a lot of time, but it's not. It's just you put your spreadsheet together and you just list all of these things in your spreadsheet. And you just add whatever you can add. And then when you put your email together, if you're using a system that does the token inserts, you write your email to where when these tokens are inserted, it makes your email really specific, but it makes it really powerful. If you received an email from somebody saying, hey, Larry, I saw you on Twitter and I noticed that you had put out this tweet about blank and I think you and I should talk. Would you respond to that person, Larry? Yeah. Right? They did their homework about you. And they don't need to know that the email that you wrote to them was actually sent in bulk. It just looked like it wasn't. Matter of fact, I send a lot of email that way. And what's funny is even, people like that I know get my emails and they're like, I'm not sure if this was automated or not. Another way is to compliment a member of their staff. Their staff is very easy to be found on their website. So you can find out, something about somebody in their staff and mention them. Okay. So just let me back up here one more time. As everyone see the power of personalization and how adding something simple like what we just talked about to your emails could just skyrocket your responses. I mean, now we're past the open at this point. Now we're trying to gather a response. Okay? Goals. What does success look like? Okay? So going into this, you have to think, what we talked about before, our whole goal is to get a response, right? But what kind of a response? Okay, what kind of a response are you looking for? So first of all, let's take a look at open rates. What is a good open rate? All right, anything less than 60%, you need to go back to the drawing board. You got a problem. There's probably, not probably, it's most likely your list. It's most likely your domain reputation. You got to fix those two. If it's 60 to 70%, you're doing okay. You've got a decent list. It's not the best, but you've got a decent list and you're okay. If you get above 70%, now you're cooking with Crisco, right? You're doing a great job. You're excellent. If you are 80 to 100%, then you're above excellent. And honestly, I cannot say I've fallen into that category too much. I'm usually in the average to just above average, or in the excellent category. Okay? So don't beat yourself up too much. But if you're less than 50%, then you really seriously need to fix this because you're not going anywhere. Okay? Response rates, reply rates. And again, we're including both the positive and the negative. It doesn't matter if somebody replies back and says, "Leave me alone, loser." They actually helped me. You're thinking to yourself, well, how does that help? Well, because they just helped your sender score because they replied. They opened it and responded. Right? So if they reply back and say, "I'm not interested, take me off your list," that's okay. So 5%, less than 5% is horrible. Poor is what we've listed here, but I would say atrocious. 10 to 20% is average, low. 20 to 40% is really good. 40 to 50% is above excellent. 50 to 75% is remarkable. 75 to 100% is unprecedented. You should actually come on this show with me, and we're going to have you teach next time. Matter of fact, call me if you're getting those numbers. I want to talk to you. All right, but realistically, you're going to fall into, and I personally fall into, I've had remarkable results when I had a really, really good email, but I usually fall within the 20 to 40% range. Okay. And that's a reply rates of people who have actually opened my email. So 50% open, or sorry, 70% of the people, 60, 70% open the email. Then you're going to get 20 to 40% of them to get you to respond back to you. Okay. Passive link clicks. Typically, the stuff that I'm teaching you guys today should not be full of links. Shouldn't have any links, really. I mean, even that third thing that I gave you, that's kind of like a last resort email. It's not something you would want to send in the beginning where you give them the options of clicking a link. Instead, you should ask them to respond to you. You should ask them to give you a piece of information, right? Reply with this detail that you're asking for, but don't ask them to click a link. If you are going to include a link, you could add a link to your website. Again, that's not suggested. I really don't put my website in anything because then it gives them the opportunity to say, "I don't need you." What you would probably want to do is maybe put in a profile link to your LinkedIn or something like that would give you an opportunity, again, to build a relationship. But even then, I don't want to include that on the first email because anything that they click before they talk to you gives them a reason to not contact you, okay? But if you do add links to your emails for a different reason, if it's not just for cold prospecting, these are link rate or click rates that you should expect. If you're getting less than 5%, that's bad, okay? 5 to 10% is average, 10 to 20 is excellent, above 20% is just amazing. I usually get above excellent on my emails, but that is because, I just have been doing this a long time and I know how to get people to click stuff. Erica, yes, it is. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started. You're going to need to make a plan. Okay. So there's different strokes for different folks. What's your goal? All right. Are you trying to obtain a meeting? Are you trying to book a sales call? Are you doing fundraising? Are you scheduling demos? Are you doing market research? Are you trying to recruit some people for talent? There's lots of things that you can be using this for. Are you trying to get in contact with the right decision maker? Are you trying to register people for a webinar? What are you trying to do? First, identify that before you start writing your email. And then think about it. What will make me feel like what I've done is a success? Is it 5% of the people that you've messaged that's actually responded to you that actually says, yeah, book me for an appointment? Is it 10% of the contacts replying to your email? What is it? Are you looking for subscribers to your YouTube channel? There's all different sorts of things that you can be doing with cold email. Think about what would make you feel that you've done something successful and make sure that you have that goal, okay? Another thing to do, and keep in mind that, in order for this to be successful, you've got to be consistent, all right? Remember, you should always do something. Stop talking about it and start doing something. Every single day, you should have an activity that you're doing where it involves getting a list and putting it into your system to mail out, okay? That's the only thing that you can control. You cannot control how many people are going to buy, but you can control how much you do. The more you do, the better. Okay, you can't always even control the response. You can do everything you can to get people to respond, but you really can only control what you actually do. So start every day by emailing at least 25 new people that you do not know every day. Okay, and do everything you can to make sure that happens without fail. Today, you should be at the end of this webinar, the next thing you should be doing is putting that list of 25, at least 25 people together that fit the bill for what you sell, and they need what you are offering, and they have all that additional information that you need to customize a really good email and clean that list. And if it fails, if you get 10 people that fall off that list, and go find 10 more to fill that spot. So you have the 25 that go out. But you should have 25 quality prospects every single day, okay? How long before you get results? Is it going to be a month? Is it going to be 6 months? You need to be prepared to do this as long as it takes for you to get your process perfected. Do not quit tomorrow. Do not quit a week from now because you didn't get what you wanted out of it. Tweak, adjust, and get perfect. Get your process. And then you'll find everything else is easy. Okay, so here's a quick review, okay, because I know a lot of people are just dying to get out there and start doing this, okay? Just remember, cold email, that's an introduction. It's not something that you're going to sell. You're not trying to sell anything. You're just trying to get to know these people. You're getting them to like you and trust you. Then you can have a potential lead. It's not mailing everybody that you can find. It's not selling. It's not pitching. It's not doing anything in the email. And again, it's not illegal if you follow the rules. Relevancy is always king. Be relevant or you're going to be ignored. Don't take your list for granted. That is the most important thing that you own. And just because you mailed them 2 or 3 or 10 times doesn't mean that list is garbage. As a matter of fact, it's actually better because they didn't mark you as spam and they didn't unsubscribe. That means the next time it could be the time that they want to buy. It takes 10 to 15 times to get in touch with somebody sometimes before they want to buy, okay? Failure to do so can ruin your sender score. Remember the things about that sender score. You got to guard it like it's your credit score because that bad sender score will keep you from making money. It'll help it'll keep you from making sure that your messages make it into the inbox. So make sure that that message is relevant. Make sure that you're doing it diligently to get that, or prospecting diligently to get good data. You're going and you're harvesting quality information off the internet or wherever you're getting it. Don't just take a shortcut and buy a list. That's not going to work. You gotta make your list really relevant. Okay. Send smaller quantities more frequently. Don't try to blast out 1,000 people, 10,000 people. More is not better. It's less is more. I'd rather have, $500 bills than $500 dollar bills. I don't know if that was a good example, but anyways, make sure that your email is as unique as possible, using tokens, using all of those things that we talked about, and always verify your email list to avoid that, that you're sending out to bad emails. You're not you want to make sure that they're not going to bounce, and avoid those generic emails. Okay. Successful message tactics. We talked about it. Remember that you always have that subject line that is going to deliver what you promise. So when somebody does open it, they don't get angry because you tricked them. Keep your message brief, 2-3 sentences max. Ask a question. That's always good. Don't try to get them to take huge commitments because they're not going to make them and they'll never respond. You can ask them to click a link. That's one way to decrease their commitment. You can appeal to common ground. That's another good thing to help with getting somebody to feel like you're one of their friends. Personalize and customize the message to make it seem authentic and that it actually is hugely relevant to them. Okay, those are all things that are going to improve your cold email. So I hope that everyone enjoyed today's training. I'm going to take a few minutes now to answer some questions. Now. So if you have a question and I have not answered, just go ahead and type it in to the chat box. Before I do go, I want to drop something here because people were asking who we are and how we can help. We actually have the ability for you to use us for all of your email sending. We have the name of our company is Hot Prospector, and we have an email service which, if you've looked at our system before, this is actually a little bit different. This is included if you already are a member, but if you're not a member, you can sign up just for our email service, which is kind of like a basic light account. We give you the ability to load 500 contacts, and we also give you the ability to email 2,500 emails every single month. You have lead forms, you have autoresponders, you have a pipeline manager, all that good stuff. If you just go to mark-helton.com/starter, you can join for $27. So, $27. We're not talking about, a fortune. You can actually start right away using our system to start doing cold email. So again, that's mark-helton.com/starter. And I will go ahead and put that in the system. mark-helton.com/starter. I'm going to type it in here to the chat because I'm getting a lot of people asking chat. So I'm going to come back and answer all your questions here as soon as I type this in here. So bear with me just for 1 second. So for $27, guys, you can sign up. There's no reason for you to not sign up if you want to send email. Our email service is actually whitelisted. We have, we're one of those middle guys that I was telling you about that help you. We're the third one. We're like SendGrid or whatever. We help you send email, and everything is whitelisted. You have the ability to whitelist your domain and everything. Do we have bigger plans? Mondi, we do have the ability for you to scale up. We also have other services and stuff, which we're not going to get into in this call, but you can actually purchase additional emails through the system and add more contacts if you need to. They're $2 for every 1,000 emails that you want to go above the minimum that we gave you. or the maximum we gave you. Okay. Awesome. Okay, so I'd like to go ahead and answer some questions here. First of all, somebody was asking for the sender score domain again. So the sender score domain where you can go and check your sender score is sender. I'm actually going to put it back on the screen here. I'm just trying to find it. Here we go. Sender base. You can see that there. It's senderbase.org. That'll give you your sender reputation. You can also just go to senderscore.org as well, I believe. And they'll require you to sign up for a free account to be able to see all the information, but it's free. So just go ahead and, senderscore.org or senderbase.org. They'll hook you up. Danny, you're welcome. Danny says, this is good stuff, Mark. Some reconfirming my thoughts, some new stuff. Thank you for taking the time to explain. You're welcome. Appreciate it. Luke says, thank you. It was a wonderful webinar. You're welcome. I appreciate your guys' compliments. Let's see. When will you be having the training on harvesting good email prospects? Actually, I'm planning on doing that next week, Amro. And you think today was great. I'm going to blow your mind next week. Seriously. This is some stuff that we've been doing that's just going to make you, your socks are going to shoot out the front door. I'm going to knock your socks off down the street next time. Because this is fun. This is good stuff to know, but some of it's kind of, geeky, boring stuff. But the next stuff I'm going to teach you is really cool stuff that's just going to make you go, wow. Yeah, I'm going to change your business next week. I know I sound like I've got a whole bunch of, it sounds kind of over the top, right? But it's serious. Amber, you're going to be so excited. So when you watch for my emails coming out and tell your friends, because they're going to want to come and see this information too. This is stuff that just nobody is teaching right now. Okay. Let's see here. Brad says, dude, you've really given me an incredible idea for cold emailing. I have definitely been doing that wrong. LOL. Thanks. Appreciate that. You were going to find the service to find more people. Thank you, CC, for reminding me. Let me look for that here real quick. I wish that I had somebody here that can help entertain while I'm away. Give me just 1 second while I look here in my Chrome settings to see if I can find this thing real quick. Let's see. Bear with me for just a second, guys. I'm going to look for this. It's actually really helpful. I love it when I'm trying to find something in Google Chrome and I cannot remember how to do it. So there it is, extensions. Okay. So it's called Conspire. CONSPIE or PIRE, Conspire. So what does a Conspire do? It's really cool. It allows you to find people that you are actually related to, or somebody who's related to your list. So if you're looking to get a hold of somebody, you can search who in your database has a connection with that person. So it's Conspire, CONSPIRE. Just search them out on Google. You'll be able to find them. It's pretty cool little plugin. So Conspire. Okay. Let's see here. Thank you again, CC, for reminding me. Am I going to send out the replay for this training, Terry? Yeah, I am. You betcha, because I want a whole bunch of people to sign up for my $27 monthly email service. So, yeah, you betcha. It'll come out hopefully later today. And I want you guys to use this. I know that we covered a lot of information. I spent a lot of time putting this together and the handout and all that good stuff. So, yes, it's coming out. Can you go to the slide, example 1, your domain servers? I missed that last sentence at the bottom. Sure, I can do that. There. Oops. Then your habits can damage your reputation because you share an IP address on that same server. That was what it was. I mean, basically, what I was talking about in that example is, and this is kind of needs to be tweaked just a little bit. What we're talking about here is using a shared host, not necessarily just your regular server. Because as you can see, this is a shared plan. This isn't your own domain. If you or your own server, if you have a dedicated server, well then you have your own clean IP, and it doesn't matter. Okay, you're not sharing, but this is when you're sharing a domain with other people, and most people don't have a need for, they don't have enough traffic on their website for them to need a dedicated server. Even a VPS, a virtual private server, is shared. So if you have a VPS and you're not on one of the small plans from a host, you could still be on a shared most times, 100% of the time, I would say. Well, we'll say 99% in case I'm wrong, but most of the time you are going to be on a shared IP with multiple people. They don't give a single IP address to every website that they sell, right? Or that's being hosted. That's cost prohibitive, especially when they're charging such a little amount to host. Most of the time, you're paying $10-15 for a hosting plan. So to save money, they'll put a bunch of people on that one IP. Let's see here. Will we automatically be put into the webinar? Do we have to register again? You're going to have to register again because I don't have a way of doing that. GoToWebinar used to allow it, but now they don't. Sorry. Mike says, Mark, is MegaLeads a reliable service for contacts? Andy gave me the source, and I'm going to subscribe. It is a good service, but again, you want to make sure that you do not use it as a way to skip through to the, you're not using it as a way to just build a list and then, even if you scrub the list, I would spend time still with that list. Don't use it to get a list of 100,000 people. Use it as a way to get a list to start with. Okay? So spend some time even with that list. Any list. I've purchased lists before, and it's not always recommended, but I've purchased lists from like Info USA and that sort of thing. And my results on those were never good unless I were to spend the time to clean those lists up and actually add the content about them that I want. Just give you an example, I purchased a list from Info USA, spent over $3,000 on the list, and Info USA is one of the top data providers out there. After I cleansed the list, I cleaned the emails, I had like 40% of the emails left. They were all bad or unknowns. So that just goes to show, they don't care. They want to sell you the list. They don't care if the email's bad, and they're going to tell you that they guarantee the quality and quantity of the list and all that stuff, right? So just keep that in mind. Whether it's MegaLeads or Info USA or whomever there is out there, you're not guaranteed to get a good quality list. Belinda, yes, Conspire is that Google extension, Google Chrome extension. It's Conspire. Belinda says, I wanted the hot prospector for life, but didn't have the money for it. Get this and get in and use the training that I just taught you. We're talking about $27 a month here. Get in, start using it, start sending emails on this level that I just taught you. Use all the training that I just showed you today. Then take that money and reinvest it in subscribing, upgrading your plan. We have plans that do a lot of other stuff that you'll want to use after you start doing this, but this gets you a way to get your foot in the door so you don't have to, put it all in right now. Can you go into warming up those dedicated IPs a little bit more? Sure. So, warming up an IP, basically the way you're going to want to do it is, number one, follow all the things that we just talked about, right? Let me go back to the questions page here. Whoops. There we go. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to you're going to want to follow all the rules that we talked about, again, with having a clean list and having a great subject line and an amazing email that's going to get people to open and respond and all that good stuff, right? Those are the first things that you want fixed. The data, all that stuff. Once you have that, then you just follow the things that I just told you. If you're sending a small list at a time for a while and just kind of warming it up with, if you send, let's just say you send 50 emails out today and 50% of them got open or 70% of them got open, you're off to a great start, right? It's just like if you think about the credit aspect, if you're building your credit, you went out and you got a small credit card that gives you a $500 per month, or a $500 balance that you can have, a credit limit. If you were to go out and buy something, let's say gas or groceries, and then pay it off real quick, well, that's going to help improve your score, which means that your balance is going to be able to be grown as well. You'll be able to, next time you call your credit card company up and say, hey, I'm a good payer, they're going to say, well, you know what, here's $5,000. Okay. So look at it the same way. So you send out, those 50 or 100 or, so emails the first day, then, that next day you could send a little bit more. And then by the end of a week, maybe you've sent out 5,000. Again, that's a lot. That's really way too much, but you get the point. You can slowly ramp it up. And if you're doing the things that I just showed you, you'll never even need to have to worry about your sender score because it's going to stay amazing and your emails are going to get open and responded to. Hopefully that helped. Let's see here. Belinda, I'm glad I didn't get VPS too costly. Yeah, you buy a VPS and then the next thing you know, you're not going to really need it. I mean, if you're going to go up from shared hosting, this has nothing to do with email, by the way. But if you're going to go up from shared hosting, you might as well just get a dedicated server because a VPS doesn't really give you much of a difference. Not with most hosts. Can we automate our emailing with your system? Yes, you can. We have stuff that allows you, look, I don't want to get into, this wasn't really meant to be a sales webinar, but I knew people were going to want this product, so why not? Here it is. But we have actually added the capabilities for you, not only to automate your sending, but we have batch email sends that you can schedule between certain hours. So let's say you wanted to drip out 50 emails, but your response rates are so good that you're like, I can't handle all these responses, right? Well, we have it set up to where you can say, I want to send out 10 emails every hour between the hours of, 7 a.m. and 3 p.m. You can schedule whatever you want. But what's cool about that is you can actually load your entire list. So if you spend a bunch of time or even hired a virtual assistant to go out and get you a quality list, right, and then put it into the system, you really only have to do that once because once you load it into the system, our system will just drip out emails every day between those hours and automatically deliver those emails. So if you want 10 an hour to go out, or if you want 15 an hour, or you want 5 an hour, or whatever, that'll just all happen for you. So you could just sit in front of your inbox and just reply to emails or sit by your phone and just take phone calls, right? So that's definitely something that you'd want to do in that system, and that's actually included. Good question. Yeah, we definitely automate it. What about buyer leads from little, I don't know if that's little ticket to wealth lead packages. Never heard of it. But I'm assuming that, there are probably leads out there that you can purchase that are opt-in leads, and those leads are good. If you have good leads, then, again, I'm still going to clean them. And if I'm paying per lead for them, I'm going to send an email back to the company and tell them that email's bad, right? So definitely, yeah. I mean, if you're buying leads, those are good. Do I have good hot prospector training? Robert asks. Robert, I don't know. Was this training good? So if you thought this training was good, then I would say yeah. If you thought this training was bad, well, this is a good example of how my training is. I usually try to spend as much time as I can training and teaching and helping make sure that everybody can use it. Sometimes I guess maybe it's possible I could fall short. If I ever do, I'm definitely open to anybody's suggestions. Terry, I missed the first half of the webinar, but I just checked my website hosting and it says I'm paying for a dedicated IP. Is that what I need? That helps, having a dedicated IP if you're sending through your host. Even if you do send through your host, you still have. Now, again, this isn't me just trying to pitch you on why you should sign up for me, even though you should. But even if you are sending through your own host, who is managing your domain? Who is managing your IP, to make sure that it stays whitelisted? You could possibly do that yourself, but who's really doing it? And if you're going to be sending a certain amount of emails, why not just have a company take care of it for you? That's just my thought on it. Again, if you're on the right track, definitely doing what you're doing instead of just signing up for shared host or whatever. But that's just a suggestion. Thank you, Belinda. Appreciate that. Robert, that's a completely different. There is training on the inside there. If you need help with that, definitely contact support, and they will help you with that 100%. Anybody else there that has a question, go ahead and drop it in if I did not answer, because I just made it to the bottom of the list and I don't see any more questions. So if there aren't any more questions, then I'm going to end this webinar. And if there are questions, then I'll answer a couple more. But hopefully this was something that everybody found a lot of value in, and it helped you with your business. I'm here as much as possible to try to help you with that. That's my goal. And if you could come to somebody that you knew that does what you're trying to do on a daily basis, and they're getting great success from it, would you do it? Right? That's kind of where I'm at. I'm doing everything I can to teach you what I practice. Let's see here. Okay, there was another question. I saw a bunch of people dropping in here, and let me find it here. I think, okay, Danny, go ahead and ask your question. I see you have a question, so maybe you're just taking some time to type it. Rick, what kind of tracking in system? Well, in our system, we track the opens, and we track the clicks, we track unsubscribes, and we track their bounces. Okay. We are in the process here soon of adding responses. That's going to be something that we're going to be tracking, like replies. We'll track people who replied. So that's something to look forward to. So you'll be able to track it, all that good stuff. If you're doing all the stuff that I just taught you today, that's going to change your world. Okay, Danny says, this is good info, Mark. I really appreciate your expertise. One thing I've noticed in the past year is that local businesses seem to be more jaded. Is that due to the plethora of experts contacting them over time, and many of them probably screwing them over, or what, in your opinion and experience? Well, when you say jaded, I'm not sure what portion you're meaning. When you pitch them your offer and then they say, they're not interested in purchasing, jaded, or is it they won't respond to you, jaded, right? Because either way, I'm going to say it's the presentation. It's not the, what's happened to them type of thing. This is a completely different training, Danny, but, everything can be fixed with your presentation. So you're saying lack of response in their feedback. Yeah. So if you're on that first part, then it's definitely your presentation. Okay. Your email is just, you're taking the wrong approach. If you get them to respond to you and you get on the phone with them and you can show them how you can help them and you can benefit them and they can see that in whatever it is that you're offering, well, then there's no reason for them to be jaded, right? Unless there's just they're in a position that you can't help them anyways. And sometimes that right there is because of the fact that the person that you're talking to is too far gone, if that makes sense. So some businesses are just on the cliff and they're ready to fall off. They might already started the fall, and you're reaching up and trying to grab their hand, and they decide they don't want your help, right? There's nothing you can do. Just let it go. And yes, that's fine if there's too many of you. If there's just what really matters is who's actually speaking the right message, because the right message is going to get through loud and clear. Luke, how reliable do you find bulk email verifier? Will you not send an email if you can find social profiles connected with Rapportive? Things are used to rely on, such as asking the other server if the email exists. Always returns true. Things like mailtester.com/testmail.php seems less reliable. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't know the true, like how accurate they are. That's why I usually only go with the ones that say good or okay, because those are right. You know, I've never had a problem with those. Matter of fact, how I know is because my bounce rates after they've been cleaned are like less than 1%. And you don't want your bounce rate to be any higher than, say, 3 or 5%. So, you know, that hopefully will help. And next week, so we only touched a very small portion when I said Rapportive. I'm going to bring up Rapportive in the next training, but there's a bunch of others that, like I said, next week I'm going to blow your socks off down the street. Okay, we're going to talk about better ways of getting emails. So when you do clean the list, you probably won't get many of them that are going to come back, or you may not even need to clean the list if you do this other thing. John, yes, full contact is one of them. Let's see here. I thought there was one more question. Which type of email address is best to use through HP? CC, can you please be a little more clear there, because I'm not exactly understanding what you're asking. Wayne, is the purpose of making emails unique, A, to improve response rate, or B, to improve deliverability? Yes, both of those. Number one, it's going to improve your deliverability, and number two, it's going to get your response rate higher. So both. Is there a best practice way to have an admin manually verify email addresses? Yeah, that, Robert, is the Rapportive way. That's one way where you can just put those emails in manually. And if you're only building a list of 50, you know, it's not a bad idea to take that kind of approach, because it doesn't take a whole lot of time to just copy and paste those emails in there and verify them. So that's one way. And if you have a personal email for somebody, then bingo. You know, you're going to get that email through just about every time. And if it's a personal email, you'll see, because it'll show up, their picture will show up, their social profiles will show up, their Skype, and, you know, all kinds of good stuff will show up. Now you know you're on the money. Yeah, what email addresses are the best with autoresponders, or does it matter? So, Danny, I'm not sure I understand what you're asking. Sorry for being so dense about this one, but I just don't understand it. What do you mean by right email addresses? Are you talking about the send from? And that, you know, something I didn't even bring up, and I'm glad that you brought this point up, because what you were saying kind of took me off in this direction. Do not send from an info at, sales at, support at generic email. Don't send from those. Send from a name. I totally should have put that in this training, and I'm so glad. Those of you that are staying here, matter of fact, I might have to change this training for the next time. But do not send from those emails, because that will kill your response rate. Nobody wants an email from info at or sales at. That's even worse. Would you reply to a sales at email? Right? Reply back at sales@hotprospector.com, so that way I can sell you something, right? You're not gonna. So make sure that you do not send from any email that is not a personal name. And if you're one of those weirdos that are, trying to be anonymous, you're in the wrong business. You should not be anonymous. If you have to be anonymous when you're sending out emails, then you're doing something wrong. And seriously, I'm hoping that you're not going to use any of the things that I taught you today to do the things that you're doing. I don't want to be part of teaching you to be a bad person. But seriously, send out from your real name. Now, if you have a real alias that's just because of your pen name or something, and that's because you branded yourself that's completely different. But, don't send from a sales at, and don't send from some fake person that doesn't exist because you don't want people to know your real name. For example, with Aweber, what email address send from? Okay, yeah, I think I answered your question, Danny. Yeah, so send from your name at whatever your domain is. No, CC. I've always known you as CC, and I'll be honest with you, I just deal with it. But why CC? Why not your first name? I wouldn't respond to CC at my domain because I don't know who CC is. Okay, CC is a nickname for your grandkids, and that's cool for your grandkids. But even CC, maybe you can make it CEE, right? So then they're like, oh, who's CC, right? Spell it out or something. But just, those are things to keep in mind. Yeah, so it is CC, but you keep it. Okay, so make it CEE when you send it out because you want your people to think of you personally, right? That's the point. The more they can identify with you, the more that they're likely to respond. But if I saw CC at blah, blah, blah.com, whatever it is, I'm going to be thinking, well, what does CC mean? And that you don't want them to you don't want them to think about it. I know you, CC, because you and I have had many conversations, but they don't. Okay. No problem. You're welcome. Do you personally incorporate the telephone into your cold emailing? Yes, I do, and that's part of our system. That's one of the things that we do at Hot Prospector. So if you were a subscriber of our service or our system, and you were like one of our, we have different packages. We have the starter package, the professional package. If you were on a professional package, then you have the ability to use phone and text and all these other things. So yes, we do incorporate telephone into our cold emailing. But just for this training today, we're focused on cold emailing because I want everybody to start doing it the right way. Too many people are just completely dropping the ball on their cold emails. Danny, I don't trust Fiverr gigs when it comes to my email addresses. I personally want to see it. And heck, they might even be using the same service that I just recommended to you. So just do it yourself. Don't sub this out to somebody else. It's too important. Okay? Do it through something, you might even find another service that you're even more interested in using that you find is better, more reputable. I don't know. That's okay. But use one. And don't do it through Fiverr. Please. All right, guys. Well, I think that ends it for today. I don't see any more questions. I'm so glad that everybody had an opportunity to make it out here today. I know this was a little bit longer than normal, but I wanted to make sure that this information got out to everyone because, and if we took a little more time doing it, that's great. As long as everybody here took stuff away from that, this is going to help change their business. I'm happy. It's worth the 2 hours. And actually looking back at it, I'm like, holy moly, I cannot believe it's already been 2 hours. So again, guys, thank you so much for coming out today. If you haven't picked up the starter account and you're looking for an email system, go pick it up. It's mark-helton.com/starter. And that'll get you that special deal of $27 a month. If you have an email service and you don't want to use me, okay, I understand. I'm not going to take it personally. But I hope you enjoyed this training. And again, we'll see you again real soon. Look out for the email, by the way, next week for the next training, the prospecting training. All right, bye-bye.